Hey everyone, welcome to Shelly Saves the Day. I'm really excited. Today we have a very special video. I've partnered with PicMonkey and we are going to be doing a giveaway in today's video for 3 lucky winners to get 1 year free of PicMonkey Pro. So if you want to see how to win, just keep watching. So you guys know I've been with PicMonkey for a while, and I was so fortunate to meet some of the people and bring them into Seattle YouTube Day. They got to do a panel, they got to give a great talk, and I was able to partner with them on this video. So 3 lucky winners are going to be able to get 1 year free of the pro version of PicMonkey. If you haven't heard of PicMonkey, it is a very popular website where everyone can go and create thumbnails and all sorts of banners and cool things for Snapchat and Pinterest and Instagram and everything you could think of. You can make posters, all sorts of cool templates. And I've actually been a customer of PicMonkey for like 3 years now. There was actually a time when they had the site up and then they had like a monthly subscription where you paid for things like more fonts and more stickers and all sorts of stuff like that, and it was called Royal or Royale. And every time I hear Royale, I think Royale with cheese. But let me know down below if you know what movie that is, right? Comment if you know what the Royale with cheese is. And so I've been with PicMonkey for a really long time, and I have to say I've watched them grow over the last just few years, and the cool features that they've added, they kind of blow my mind. So I even went to a training recently at the PicMonkey headquarters in Seattle, and it was so beautiful, and I got to hang out with some of their designers and hear about how they do things, so I was really excited about that. Today I thought it would be really fun to walk you through some of what I do when I create a thumbnail. This has been requested before and I've just never really made it. We're not going to go too in depth with everything. This isn't a full PicMonkey tutorial. It's more just kind of like a glimpse on how I do my thumbnails and some of the ideas around why I do what I do when it comes to getting your videos seen on YouTube. It comes down to 2 things. It comes down to your title and it comes down to your thumbnail. And if it were me, I would say probably it comes down to your thumbnail first and then the title. Because honestly, when you see a thumbnail that is just so beautiful and you're like, whoa, I need to know what that is, then you go and look at what the title is. Okay, so one of the very first concepts that you have to kind of understand about PicMonkey or Photoshop or any of the type of photo editing tools is that they work in what are called like layers. And so the easiest way to understand that, I made a very crude little demonstration, but here we go. So what you see here, it says Shelly Saves the Day, right? But it's actually not all on one sheet. It's across 3 different sheets. So I have a couple of these transparent sheets here. So if I peel one down, see the top one actually had the Shelly, right? And then this next one has the saves. So what's left is the day, which is on this piece of paper that is not see-through, okay? So if you think about this and you put it all together, when you have them laying on top of each other, right, one after the other, think like slices, basically you have this entire thing that when you put it together, it says Shelly Saves the Day. So if you take one of these pieces out, like this transparent middle part, then what you really have is Shelly the Day, right? And if you, again, take away the other piece, you have Saves the Day. So if you were to take this piece, which is the non-transparent piece, right, it's quite opaque, and you put it in the middle, so now you have like a sandwich of clear and then opaque and then clear, what you see is Shelly the Day, and that is because you can't see the part that's in the back because it's covered by an object that is like super not see-through. Does that make sense? So once you start to understand this kind of, I don't know, pattern, nomenclature, then you're going to understand how the computer understands and sees your photos, right? So again, for the top 2 layers, because both of them are transparent, if I switch them, you still see Shelly Saves the Day. But it doesn't work that way if it's something that is going to be like in front, even though those transparent layers are on top of each other, and if they were by themselves, doesn't matter the order, you'd still see it. You throw it on top of something that you can't see, and all you'll see is the thing on top, and the things are still here, you just can't see them. So that is the way that you have to think about layers within kind of like Photoshop or PicMonkey, and that's how things that are transparent and things that are not transparent or opaque kind of work together. So you can kind of see how that works. I hope this part makes sense to you. If it does, give me a thumbs up in that comment section, okay? So the first thing we are gonna do, we are going to be opening up PicMonkey, and I like to start with a still frame from a video, and I like to do that because it usually is going to export like a high quality still image, and so I will usually do that, and that's why you saw in my video footage on Instagram. If you're not following me, you should. It's Shelly Saves the Day there, but I had a post where I was like, hang around with many creators long enough and you're always gonna get like thumbnail face, which is stuff like, you know, stuff like that. The faces you make when you're thinking you're gonna pull that frame out later for a thumbnail. So I like to take out the thumbnail picture, right? And then I'm gonna upload it here into PicMonkey. Once you have the picture here, what we're gonna do is we're going to edit it. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that it is in the thumbnail standard size. So, you know, that could either be 1280 by 720 or you can do 1920 by 1080. It can be your pick. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And you make sure that if you're going to do that and you're going to crop in, make sure that you select that button that says like scale photo, because if you don't, it'll just let you transform the edges and then you're not going to have that same aspect ratio. So you want to make sure that you have that aspect ratio. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I always do a little bit of editing on myself. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do a little bit of the airbrushing, and then like right now you may or may not see it, but I've got kind of like a little, I don't know, skin blemish happening right there. So I am just going to head on over here to the tools. One second here. I'm going to select the airbrush tool, and you can then like drag left to right to make that the airbrush effect like larger or smaller. And the reason you'd want to do that is maybe, you know, you don't want to blow out the entire face if all you're doing is like the section right here by your cheek or right here. You can then bring it down and just do that piece. I'm gonna do that. Great. Okay. And then I typically like to also go in and I will do the blush boost, because I feel like sometimes with all the lights and everything, it's just good to have a little extra color. So I will just go over here and select a blush boost. And I like to keep the radius of the circle like kind of large, like around the whole cheek area, because it's just easier to do it, I think, in one fell swoop and go dook once than to do it like a whole bunch of times. So I'm gonna do that, and I usually go with kind of a heavier color. Okay, cool. And then I will always, I'm going to increase the saturation of a photo, because when you're looking at the thumbnails and they're itty bitty, you know, 1 inch by 2 inch or something like that on a mobile phone, you really have to have something that's going to be bright and eye-catching. So I always am going to increase the saturation, up the brightness usually, and maybe even play with some of the contrast so that like my hair is darker or something like that. And then last thing, sometimes if I have a really big smile and I want to, sometimes I will go in and just whiten the teeth slightly. Not too much, but slightly. Okay, so once the photo is good, I like to make sure that I've already saved that photo. So in case you need to go back to it and do other things to it, you have kind of like, you've exported a copy of like your high quality photo so that you can come back later if you need it. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to create basically a cutout of just myself. And so the way that I do that, I will usually go in, and sometimes I will just let it be the transparent background, and I'll just bring my photo in, and then I'll do the eraser tool and I'll start erasing the background so that I get that checkerboard effect. And sometimes I will make it, depending on like the clothes I'm wearing or something like that, sometimes I'll do like a very solid color background so it's easier to tell that when I'm like erasing. So I will usually do that. Sometimes I'll go like a little bit around myself, leave a tiny bit of a border, and you can increase and decrease the slider for the erasure as you get closer to things that are more detailed, like your hair and stuff like that. I like to export this image as a separate file, because like I was saying, you know, with like the layers, I like to have each layer be kind of separate. So think of it as myself with the cutout would be like this very, it would be Shelly. It would be the top layer like this. And then insider secret, I have just a generic shot of the room without me in it. So if I did this, Okay, and I was all the way down, but I took a photo. You get the idea. You can take a still frame of that. That way when you cut myself out and put it in front, you can, you know, blow yourself up, or, oh, that sounds really bad. You can make yourself larger or shrink yourself down, and then you can place yourself without having to think about you being in the photo. So that's just an insider trick. What I like to do, I will always have one generic background as well. And that would be my second layer. So that I usually put as like a second layer. So I've got myself as a layer, I've got my room as a layer, and then the next layer after that, I don't have another transparent one, but I usually do a text layer. So one trick that I have around doing a text layer for myself, I like to make sure that the spacing is even. So one trick is I will go in and create a frame, like a box, like with a shape, and I will have it kind of on the border. That way when I import my text and put it on there, I just make sure that it touches, you know, the left edge and that kind of right edge on that diagonal. So when I put my text on it, I would just make sure that the text lines up, and I always have my text the same size, and I always use the same font. So there is that uniformity when you are looking at most of my thumbnails. So you're gonna see the text in the, you know, sorry, it's gonna be in this corner up here. And then you're gonna see, like usually I have another overlay of myself and the logo, which is going to be down here-ish. And I don't mind putting it down there. I call this is kind of like no man's land, which is you don't put anything that is super duper important, or I try and avoid text down here, because right about here is where the timestamp is for YouTube. So when you see that, it's going to cover up anything that you have down here, so it's not really worth it to put anything down here. And for a lot of the reading orientations in the world, it's going to go left to right. So for myself personally, I like to start my text kind of in the upper left-hand side, because I feel like it has a more natural flow with the way that a lot of people tend to write. And keep in mind, these are all separate layers, and this is where, again, all of those layers come into play, and you think about how they're stacked on top of each other. Don't be afraid to play around on the side over here with the layering tool so that you can kind of like decide how things really need to look in the end. And I would say use sparingly the flatten tool, which is going to take all of these layers. So let's say we have 3 layers, right? And what it's going to do, if you decide to hit flatten, it's then going to give you one layer that has all of the however many layers you've chosen on top of it. But if that happens and then you need to go back and change one thing, you can't anymore, because you can't really access it, because now that it's all one layer, it's been squished. So this would be like, think if you went from these 3 layers and then you laid this on a copy machine and you spit out a copy, right? You can't do anything to move the text up and down anymore, because it's all now one document. So I hope that makes sense, and that's flatten or merge. Sometimes you'll say merging of layers. So if you flatten all of it, just know that that needs to be the last thing you're doing, because then it's one image. I think that you should never repeat your entire title in your thumbnail. It's too much text most of the time, right? I don't think it's helping you just to repeat exactly what it is. So I like to pull out like a 1-word or 2-word type of thing that is about what my video content is, and then let the title do its own thing kind of on the side. So they should complement each other, but they should not mirror each other, is kind of how I feel about that. And you know, some people could disagree with that, but I've done a lot of like research, and I've gone to a lot of talks, and I've heard people speak about it, and a lot of them are going to advise that you don't just copy the text from your title into your thumbnail. And when it comes to your thumbnail and exciting copyright and title and everything, there's a few rules. Like, you should never have more than 6 words on your thumbnail. Those words should not be more than 6 letters or so at a time, because it's just too much text, and most people are thinking about thumbnails in a full computer screen size, when really you need to optimize for mobile first, because 75 to 80% of the traffic that's watching YouTube is not watching it on a TV or a computer. They're watching it on their phone. So if you're also, the font choice, if your font is a super skinny script, which is very pretty, but it's not, there's no solid block behind it to help differentiate or get it to pop out from the background, it's just gonna get lost. And the people who use 5 or 6 different fonts on a thumbnail, it's weird and it's cluttered and it doesn't look good. I can't say that I think that's a very good idea to do that. Also, you should have kind of like a thumbnail style. So I like to use the same font. I like to use the same like colors and certain things. And I have a kind of pattern for how I make my thumbnails. So now my thumbnails don't take me that long to create because I have kind of an archetype prototype of what my thumbnail should look like. So I would highly encourage you to do that. I might also encourage you to take a look at some sort of branding that makes your thumbnails uniquely yours. So there are certain people, when I think of it, I can think about what their thumbnails mean to me. If I think Alicia Marie and Remy Cruz and Laura DIY, they all have super saturated pastels. There's a certain font that comes to mind, and I understand that those are their thumbnails, and I see it and I know it's one of their videos. And I'd like to think that when you look at the thumbnails that I have, it's kind of the same thing. You can kind of understand, you know, I've got, you know, the superhero over here, I've got the beams coming up, I've got the logo or color of what the video is about. So I feel like as I've grown, my aesthetic has gotten more to where I want it. Is there still room for improvement? Yeah, of course. There may be a lot of science or reasons why I do certain things in my thumbnails. Do you have to be as meticulous about it? No, but I do think that being very pointed about the way that you make your thumbnails, if you have a certain style, if you have a certain, you know, font, I think you should stick with it for a while and see how that's going for you, because I like to know that if you see one of my thumbnails, usually you'll see, you know, like I said, the person down here, you're gonna see the text up here. I'd like to think that you would know that it's one of my videos, and then I go a step further in my thumbnails and I will do them by color. So you'll see that all of my iMovie tutorials are more of a purple color. All of my Final Cut ones are actually in blue. All the videos where I talk about YouTube specifically, I put red. And so I do that so that when you're looking at them in playlists, it looks visually appealing to your eye. At least I think so. So that is some of the secrets behind what I'm doing with my thumbnails. In this video, I also am going to tell you that 3 lucky winners are going to be getting a 1-year subscription to PicMonkey Pro. So this is going to be awesome for you because now you can go in and have a bunch of storage online. You'll have the ability to like see your stuff there and access it from your mobile app. You're going to be able to do all of the editing that you want to do and make awesome thumbnails and it doesn't have to be just thumbnails. Can I say, you could be making banners, you can be making pins for Pinterest, you can be making Instagram story covers, you can make anything that you would use that is like graphics wise, you can use PicMonkey to do it. So that's so awesome. So I'm really, really excited for the chance to partner up with PicMonkey. And here is how you're going to enter. There's going to be a link to a Gleam website down below. It's going to help me randomly select 3 of you to get a code, and I will get you a code via DM or email somehow. And you will get 1 year free of PicMonkey Pro, which I think is so cool. So thank you so much, PicMonkey, for partnering with me and giving me those codes to give out. So if you guys enjoyed this video and seeing an inside look how I make my thumbnails, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Would love to have you be part of the squad. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in a video very soon. Bye, guys. Actually, it's over here, isn't it? Yeah, it's over here.